10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff, Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
It is a giant leap for us right into Kerbalcast Episode 10. Episode 10.
10.
Calling occupants of interplanetary craft.
This is ground control to Major Tom.
Standing there alone, the ship is waiting, all systems are go.
We know Major Tom's a junkie.
10.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot, Biff Aldrin, and with us as always, our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program, we'll update you on our progress within the game.
We have our Beginner's Minute,
We'll also read your letters in this week's Crew Report,
the latest news in the mission briefing,
and another episode of
As the Kerbin Turns. We also have our But I Digress segment where we talk about the movie Europa Report.
And this week, a special contest. Can you believe it's episode 10?
Well, I think it was said enough times in the intro.
10.
So, but yeah, it's crazy. Like
Yeah.
we just kind of started this, over 2 months ago now.
I know.
And we're like, hey, let's just do a podcast.
Well, what I go back to is when you and I did the very first episode.
Yeah.
When we went into the studio, I mean, it was literally, let's see if we can even do this.
Yeah, it was like the biggest trial run. We're like, okay, let's see if we can even both talk into mics.
Yeah.
And back then we had one mic setup.
Yeah.
And so there were some personal space issues going on.
You were sitting on my lap.
Yeah, we had to watch.
No, you weren't.
Yeah,
No, he wasn't.
I wasn't.
He was not.
You had to watch what you're eating half the time because it's like, oh, that's what you had for breakfast.
Yeah, we had one microphone initially, and so I would say something, and then I would have to lean out, and he would lean in.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm surprised we didn't conk heads at any point.
Yeah, have like a romantic comedy moment where we conk heads, and then we're like, oh, hi.
Like Lady and the Tramp, like we're eating spaghetti, and like our faces clumped together. But no, when we did episode 1, you remember when we got done, I almost was like, okay, I don't want to release this. And do you remember what you said to me? You said that this is as raw as we're ever going to be.
Yeah. So anyone who's listening now, if you go back and listen to our previous ones, I just want to tell you, that is probably the most, like straightforward we were. We didn't have bump music. Like we didn't have the...
No bump music.
Yeah.
We didn't have As the Kerbin Turns.
Yeah.
I don't think we did have Digress.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
it was
we
really
talked about-
short.
yeah.
It was our pilot, so we're like, we don't want to go too long. We just want to see how this goes, and so it was like half the length of some of ours now.
It was like, the very first one, which we call the pilot now. I guess.
Yeah, which is our way of saying like, hey, if anything's wrong with this one, it's only the pilot.
Please forgive us our sins.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and continue now. We always talk about our progress report within the game. I am going to say this. Usually you start, but I'm going to say one thing first because I'm proud of this.
Okay. Where? Go ahead.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
602 hours.
2 milestones in this podcast.
Woo!
We got 600 hours on episode 10.
Yeah.
How much of it do you think is sandwich time?
Sandwich time?
Yeah, like you had the game on, but you're just making a sandwich and like you weren't actually doing anything.
For me, nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
0 sandwich time.
Yeah. 0 sandwich time.
Wow.
Seriously, I know this is going to sound pathetic, and I probably, like suicide hotlines all over the country are going to start calling me to make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
This game has taken over my life.
Oh.
I mean, seriously, it's like if I'm not at work and if I'm not at home asleep, I'm playing this game.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that proudly.
You make me feel bad. My
like
progress
it's an
is-
addiction. You know, it's like my brain. It's like if I'm not somewhere in the game,
So-
it's like my brain goes, reality, no.
So like if your computer crashes, they would find you on a roof like throwing watermelons off so you can see something smash.
That's right.
I need to see something crash. So you're like buying model rockets and throwing them off buildings.
Now, if my computer crashed and I couldn't like recover it, I think I'd be on the roof about to jump. not throwing watermelons. Be like, life is not worth living.
You got like 3 backup hard drives going, the backup for the backup. to the back.
Well, you know what? That would be like the most demented testimonial for the game ever. It'd be like Kerbal Space Program. It'll suck away every ounce of your life.
Yeah, that's been
no girlfriend.
That's been
no car.
That's been
no
the
job.
standing, slogan for almost every MMO. So that's about time a simulation game got it.
But anyway, so that was my thing. 602 hours. Woohoo! I think when we started the pod, if I'm not mistaken, I think I was just over 500 at the time.
Yeah. So in about two and a half months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be right. 2.5 months, you racked up 100 hours. Nice.
Woo! So maybe by episode 20, I'll be up to 1,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Hey.
Yeah. There we go.
And by that I don't mean hours. I mean weight.
Oh.
That's how many pounds I would have gained.
It's good to have goals.
Yeah, that's true.
Good. You got to have a goal.
I want to be on one of those reality shows where they have to go get a forklift to put me in the ambulance. Must Kerbal. Yeah. Okay, so that's my one little progress thing. I'll talk
a big
about.
Progress. 600 hours, no sandwich time.
Woo!
Like my girlfriend has 400 something hours in Peggle because she left it on for 2 or 3 weeks. So that game is sandwich time. I think
it's all sandwich time.
I think I have 1 or 2 hours of sandwich time in Kerbal because I launched and whatever, and I did something else, and I realized I still logged in the game. So, I have, man. Okay, so it's really hard to hide what I've been doing because he sees what games I've been playing. So, the reason I've been playing a lot of Payday 2 is 1, it's a fun game, and 2, I have 3 design projects I'm working on right now.
Right.
And
well, plus it has a social aspect.
Yeah.
Which is the exact reason why I don't play it.
Yeah. So
I game to get away from people.
Yeah. So it's been playing it for a social aspect, and it's also after working on these things and trying to do all my design stuff and it not working, I don't want to go watch my failures crash into the ground in a game too. I just want to run around and shoot stuff. It's I need to feel a win somewhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes in Kerbal, whenever you have a victory, it's massive.
Right.
Whenever you have a defeat, it's
but it's slow in coming too.
Yeah. It's it's earned. Everything you do in that game is definitely earned. You're not hey, that just lucked out. It's sometimes you have dumb luck, but it's more often that it's a accumulation of skill.
I have always wanted to be good at chess. I love chess. Okay, I love the game.
Yeah.
I've only won 2 games of chess in my life, and both times, I swear to God, accident. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Both times that I won the game, I was in the process of setting up what I thought was going to be the killer move, and then all of a sudden it'd go checkmate, and I went, what?
Oh.
And then and then I'd have to go through and look at it, and I'd go, oh, that's what I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've won 2 chess games out of all that I've ever played, and both of them were by accident. I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
Let's just say, searching for Bobby Fischer, they went right past my house.
Okay, so my progress in the game, I've had a pretty interesting little run. So I had my Mun sort of landing, last week.
Right.
And so I wanted to work on that, and I watched.
I like how you generously called it a landing.
Yeah, parts of the ship landed. There were parts of the ship on the Mun by the time everything was over. Were they going to leave? No. Were any of them alive? No. But parts of the ship landed. So.
Yeah. Get us on the ground. Oh, that part's definitely going to happen.
There were certain things that I forgot about the process, and part of the reason that I crashed that time is because
survivability.
I was going in at a diagonal, and I was just I'll figure it out, and I didn't figure it out. So I was watching you, and I watched some other people mess around with it, and I forgot something that was really important to making sure your landing went straight down, and that was retro burning.
Right.
And so. I spent so much time on one end of the nav ball, and what I mean by that, it's not the blue or the orange end. It's I always was looking at where my ship was headed, You know, it's like the circle, not the yellow circle, not the yellow circle with the
Your
X.
direction of motion.
Yeah, so I never looked on the other side of the nav ball and saw the one with the X to see that's where I'd counter movement. Because I would see people retro burn. I was like, how do you know where to find that? How do you know what's the exact opposite of where you're going with accuracy? And then, you know, I was just like flipping around. I was like, oh, yeah, the circle with the X. So if you ever want to go complete opposite of what you're doing, go to the yellow circle with the X and retrograde burn it. And
and it's the yellow circle is prograde, the yellow circle with an X is retrograde.
Yeah. So a lot of this was building I was like, I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to build something. And I was working more on making something like a lander, something that could land, but also get itself back up.
Right. Always a good part.
Yeah. So it was a big trial and error exercise. So it started off, I built the rocket, and go ahead and get the thing launched, and realized I didn't have RCS. So then I reverted and built the rocket and started a launch, and then realized that like whenever I got all the way there and was sort of had something going, the landing legs didn't extend farther than the thruster. Yeah. So then I had to revert, go back, and whenever you're building a vehicle, if you right click any of the like landing gear, anything that has a function, you can see what it would look like with that function manifest.
Right.
So whenever the landing gear, you could put it in your build mode and right click it and extend it to see what it would look like extended to see if it out measures it. That was something I learned, and that was actually pretty useful.
That's always kind of that's that moment where you're building and you extend the leg and you know, you maneuver the craft around so that you can just see it at the right angle.
Yeah,
and you go, okay, there's the bottom of the engine bell, and there's the leg, and it's about 2 feet above it.
Yeah.
Oops.
Like, so if I manage to find a crater, this is a perfect size for the landing bell, I'm fine.
If I manage to find 4 craters in exactly a square pattern.
Yeah. And so then I launched it, and I got close again, but I was on I didn't have any light, like the sun wasn't shining on that part of the mun.
Right.
And I realized I didn't do the thing.
No
you
floodlights.
Yeah, I forgot floodlights. Floodlights are really important because it's not. Originally, I thought they were like so I could see parts of the ship. I was like, I can always see the ship to some extent, or I could wait till the sun comes up. It's for seeing the ground, or at least the way that
that's how I use it.
Yeah, the way that I was shown him using it is he uses floodlights to see the ground and where how far away the ground is by the how focused the beam is. Yeah, which was very useful. So,
yeah, that helps me. I have spotlights that are trained straight down, and obviously my illumination, especially if you have like 4 of them, because it goes from a general illumination, and then the closer you get, it resolves itself down to 4 dots right before you land.
Yeah.
And that's it was so because judging your distance in the game to the ground is not always easy.
Yeah.
But the landing, that's always helped me. That's probably how you're supposed to do it, but that's kind of
So that's what I started doing with it, and that was the most recent lander that I made. I now have into an orbit around the mun, and I haven't tried it, but it has those on it, so I'm going to be trying that when I get home.
Okay.
And the other thing was I was not doing the appropriate amount of RCS. Like I would either forget fuel tanks or I had the RCS themselves. I was putting them on a like a disymmetrical thing where there's one on either, like if let's say the rocket was a tube, they're on the left and right sides of it.
Right.
And that was not working. So
I always try and do in quarters.
Okay, so you do it in 4s?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what I was trying, and it seemed to work a little bit better. If you had, like, let's say...
and the other thing I do, too, depending on the length of the craft, if I have, like, for example, let's say that my spaceship is a long tube, I'll do more than one set of 4. Like I'll have one in the front, one in the middle, and one at the back.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you've got one set of RCS trying to move...
this massive thing.
Yeah, and that's when you want to talk about, I mean, you hit movement, and then you just sit there and just watch as it just slowly starts to move.
Yeah.
And you're going, come on.
So if you were to do like a hex build, like 6, like let's say you had
3 symmetrical.
No, 6.
Is that what you mean?
6 symmetrical. Like let's say you
Okay.
had a main
Okay.
tube
I'm with
rocket,
you. I'm with
and then
you.
you had 6 extensions on it. Would you put RCS on each of them, or just 3 of them?
I would. I would
Okay.
put them on all 6.
How's it going to register that? Because if will it only hit the ones appropriate for turning left and right?
It hits all of them, but if you'll watch, depending on where you are and depending on what you're trying to do on the nav ball, you'll notice that each RCS port is doing something different.
Okay, so it does whatever is appropriate to do
Right.
whatever you need it to.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
so-
a lot of times you'll see, even though let's say you're trying to rotate right,
Yeah.
you'll look at your RCS and you'll see that one of them is it's actually got 2 nozzles going.
Okay.
You see,
Yeah,
so
and-
it's all
okay.
kind of appropriate to where it is.
Do you normally do quad builds where it's symmetry 4, or do you do symmetry 6 or?
I typically do symmetry 4. There are times when I do 6. A lot of it depends on weight.
Okay.
Because obviously 6 of something is a lot heavier than 4 of something. And if I'm trying to, like for example, if I'm trying to get a lot of fuel into orbit, I tend to shy away from 6 simply because the extra fuel from the extra 2 tanks means that my launch vehicle has to be that much bigger.
Yeah.
And I don't know about your computer, but when I start to get in the 900 to 1,000 range part count, my computer, and not that it chugs, but you can tell that the computer is just really working.
Yeah, my computer's not the most high-tech piece of machinery. I mean, it does some gaming. I'm able to play a couple different things, as you've seen. So yeah, I've gotten that 1,000 part
That's
count.
actually kind of good. What I do is kind of sad. So.
Whenever I get into that 1,000 part count, like I actually, the one that I'm working on right now was only I think it's less than 200, but I still crashed at one point because I just had so much stuff going on, and yeah, so my computer needs a little bit of work for that. But
yeah, I will say this: there is a lot to be said for economy of building. In that, I had for a while there, I'd kind of gotten into a habit where everything I built was were these massive constructions.
Yeah,
and to go back and build a very simple craft of say 300 parts. The simplicity of it. It takes a lot less to get into orbit. It's much more maneuverable, typically. You as you kind of go through, that process of building bigger and bigger ships, when you go back and actually build a small one, it's like you kind of rediscover a different part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed whenever I was doing preloadeds, like my first week or two of the game.
Right.
And I was building these like massive rockets.
Right.
And they were as massive for where I was in career mode. They were just really big, tons of boosters, you know. And they would go to a certain height. And I did a preloaded whenever I found out there were like rockets already loaded up on there. I think in the sandbox mode.
Right.
And there was just a really simple rocket. It was just a tube with like 2 little girders attached to either side and like that small booster, the one with the black stripe on it.
Yeah.
Which at a certain point you stop using those.
Yeah.
Like, because you're like, oh no, I got those giant tube boosters. Those things are massive. And then you throw those on everything. Well, it just had those and it went higher.
Yeah.
Because it's like it was light, had a lot of thrust, and it could really go far. So it's like you really got to experiment with the less is more thing.
Well, have you ever just for grins taken like the little booster with the yellow stripe on it, put a capsule on top of it, and then just launch that? You would be amazed at how high that goes.
Yeah.
And it's just one dinky little booster and a capsule.
Yeah, when it's lifting like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and that's a good lesson because you look at that and you go, I'm going so far with so little, as opposed to building, because with the really big ships, there's a point of diminishing return. Yeah. Where you end up adding more and adding more and adding more, and instead of adding more thrust, it's like you're adding more weight. Mm-hmm. And you do get to a point where every time you add something, it's like you're adding, like a 10th% of thrust, but you're adding like 10% weight.
Yeah.
And there are so many times when I'll spend like hours building these crafts and I can't get them up into orbit, and then eventually I'll just go, click, and I'll delete like, the first 3 stages and completely start over. And I end up with this very simple thing that worked perfectly. And it's like, well, I should have done that in the first place. But, I started with this really complicated plumbing and then couldn't understand why the sink got stopped up.
Yeah. And you keep trimming all this chaff off and shaving it and shaving it.
I don't need that. I don't need that.
Yeah. It goes from that huge lump of coal into this beautiful diamond.
The chrysalis and the butterfly. The moral of the story is less is more.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes. And unless it's cookies.
Yeah.
And, that's not true.
Well, there are, there is that you're always going to be wrestling with. There's a fine line between what you need and what you have to do.
Yeah.
Simplicity is great unless what you're trying to do is not simple. In which case, it's like, okay, yes, I'm trying to be simple, but, I've got to have this on there, and I've got to have this on there, and I've got to, and pretty soon it's like, okay, no matter what I do, this is complicated. But it's because what I'm trying to do is complicated.
So I'd been working on different landers. I made another one, and it got really close, and it suffered tall booster syndrome. And I guess stubby leg tall booster syndrome. And it landed and
restless
crashed,
booster
crashed
syndrome,
which the entire thing landed fine except the thruster just got knocked off.
Oh,
so,
nice.
It landed and it was there, and so I was in the Mun Midlands, so I might as well get some science from going to the Highlands. So I continued to roll it across the countryside. Just rolling and rolling until
I'm looking for my missing piece. I'm looking for... Oh.
Yeah, and I didn't find the missing piece. It exploded.
No.
So, because I actually got it pretty far.
So I was my knees and freeze my knees.
I got it kind of far without, rolling too fast. And then I ramped off of a crater and then exploded. And I was like...
Do you realize you did that exact same thing last week?
Yeah, I know. I did.
You don't learn.
No, I don't learn. I got a little closer to learning something, but yeah... Stonehenge.
How many times did you stick your finger in the light socket? Oh, ouch. Oh, ouch.
Hey, the time it's different. I'll show you. They'll all see.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, they'll all see.
You made a comment last week. You made a suggestion, and what you just said goes right back to what you said last week, and I would love to see it in the game. I would love for a Kerbal to be able to get out. Like if you knock a booster off or something, I would love for a Kerbal to be able to get out, take that part, and reconnect it. It would be nice if Kerbals could actually manipulate stuff.
Yeah, if you could, like in the payload fuselage or something, if you could have them go and you could pack a certain number of parts, and the weight will be there,
right?
And you have them pack it all up and fly it out there. And now, whenever it came time to actually attach it to the ship, you had to get close to it and have the payload package with the Kerbal,
right?
But your options would be limited. It wouldn't be the building in space.
Right.
Like you wouldn't be able to do the building mode in space. There would just be a few attachment areas, and then you could go and you could attach those things to them. So you couldn't build an entire ship out there,
right?
But you could build some things. And you said a big change you'd make would be to secure things more, right?
Right. I would love to have permanent attachments, because what I would love to do is I would love to be able to send up individual pieces into orbit and do a hard connect. And when I say hard connect, I mean when they lock together, they don't move. They have the same permanency that you get as if you mated those two pieces together down on the ground in the VAB. Because right now, and I'm not talking about mods here. I'm talking about the vanilla plain Jane game. Right now, the only way to mate two pieces together is with the docking hatch. And when you do that, it's
wiggly.
Yeah, it's a very, for lack of a better phrase, it's a wiggly connection. And for example, you can't mate two things side by side and then accelerate without a certain amount of vibration or movement.
Whenever you do that, how hard is it or how easy is it to break the clamp, the docking?
That actually, when we get to my part of the progress,
let's just go into it. What's your part of the progress?
Well, I still have 2 guys stranded on Eve.
They're okay.
Yeah, because again, infinite air in their suits.
Uh-huh.
I showed you. They are literally standing on the surface of
he showed me the picture, and they're both standing side by side, like looking. It seriously looks like a vacation photo. It looks like a vacation photo of them, like next to the car on a road trip. They're like,
"Hi, Mom."
Like, "Hey, it's Mount Rushmore." They're both just standing there, hand in hand.
It's the purple planet.
Yeah. Are they still like? Did you move them at all?
No.
Are they,
no.
They're still both just sitting.
They're
staring?
still just standing there.
Yeah, they were staring at the ship. They're like,
yeah.
So close yet so far, because they were one ladder piece away from being able to get back inside.
Yeah, because they can't get back in. If you didn't hear last week's episode, I set the ladder apparently is just a hair too low from the edge,
like a couple pixels off or something.
Yeah, so when they get to the top of the ladder, instead of going up and over, they fall backwards.
Yeah, and the gravity's too much for them to jump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They cannot jump. They can't use their jetpacks, anything. We're talking Eve. And the gravity on Eve and the atmosphere, as we'll talk about later in the program, Eve is one of the most difficult planets because of that.
Yeah.
Because of the thickness of the atmosphere and because of the heavy gravity. But yeah, I literally have 2 Kerbals standing on the surface of Eve, and I've got them standing side by side, staring off into the distance.
Yeah.
And since I haven't gone back and moved them or anything, what they're doing is it's like the sun rises and then the sun sets, and they're standing there in total darkness, and then the sun rises again. I'm sure one of them at some point's like nudging the other guy, going, well, "Why aren't we moving?"
Yeah, it's kind of like
why are we standing here?
It's kind of like the painting of the farmer and his wife. They're just like standing there holding the pitchfork while that's in the background.
But anyway, okay, so I've got 2 Kerbals, and I'm in the process of doing a rescue mission. And what I wanted to do, from scratch, I wanted to build like a gigantic interplanetary ship. And so the first half of the week was me spent building a giant fuel tank / engine combination.
So it'd be like a template, like anytime you wanted to go to another thing, that would be
basically it
so
would
you're making like a sub-assembly, trying to find like the perfect sub-assembly.
Well, I'm gonna do a nerd reference here. Star Wars Episode 1, do you remember the pod race?
Oh yeah.
Okay, do you remember how the pods were like 2 giant engines, and then the little the sled or little car or whatever you want to call it was being dragged along by the 2 big engines? That's essentially what I'm doing, is I'm creating like this giant
waste of
fuel
time.
tank.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, duh. You don't think this is productive, do you?
Giant waste of screen time is what I meant.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. But yeah, no, what I'm doing is I'm creating, and I've got this part done, although it took me quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I've got this giant monstrosity with all kinds of fuel tanks and engines and everything, and it's got a docking port on the tail end of it. And the idea is to send up a small landing craft, dock with it, and then let the big sled thing, whatever, take me to Eve.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll disconnect, land, get the 2 Kerbals, come back up, redock, and then it'll take me back to Kerbin.
Huh.
Now, if I was wanting to make a blooper video of rockets exploding, this past week I would have so much footage, because if there's a way for a rocket to explode, I have found it this past week. One of the things I discovered, part of why this has taken me all week, is once I got part 1 of my vision.
Yeah.
I'm calling it my vision. It's my grand opus.
Yeah, the grand design.
Yeah, the great design. Okay, once I got part 1, which was the giant rocket with the fuel tanks and the engines and everything, once I got that in orbit, creating a smaller craft to match up with that, part of the trial and error process requires me to actually get into orbit, rendezvous, and dock. So every time I tried and discovered the error, it was at least a good 45 minutes of getting up into orbit and rendezvousing and docking. Yeah. And that's when I discovered things like, early on I discovered, the docking port is recessed too far in and the little craft can't reach it. That was a problem. And then, the latest problem that I discovered was the docking port on the tail end. I thought that I had created a space back there where the smaller craft could basically move in and dock between all the engines. Okay, so it would be nestled between the engine bells.
Nice and warm.
Yeah, all snuggly and warm. and that's what I was trying to do. Well, I discovered last night that actually, it docks just fine. The problem is that it docks right up against the engine bells. So the force of the engine bells is literally blowing on my little craft. Okay? And I thought, okay, maybe there's a glitch in the game where it doesn't register like the resistance of that small craft against the engines. In other words, it just registers the thrust of the engines, but not something in front of it.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, maybe there's a glitch in the game, something with the physics where I can get away with this. And so I fire up the engines. And I'm, and at first, okay, this is working, this is working.
Yeah,
and so, okay, well, I'm at, like 10% power. Okay, well, now 20, now 30, and I keep snaking it up slowly. I get to about half power. And all of a sudden, my landing craft, because your question was about the docking port, how adhesive they are. All of a sudden, it's like the thing starts shimmying like crazy. And it just, and then explodes. Boom! And all that's left is a little pod with no parachutes or anything. And there's like 1 million parts just scattered.
Wow.
And it's just floating. And it's like, okay, I'm obviously going to have to go back and redesign something because that's not going to work.
F9.
F9. Well, but what I'm going to have to do is what I had been doing all week was I already had the first part, the fuel tanks and the engine stage built and in orbit. And then I was just docking things to it.
Yeah.
What I'm going to actually have to do now is I'm going to have to go back and redesign, and I won't say redesign in the sense that I'm gonna have to make huge changes. I'm just gonna have to move the engines further out. Create more of a space there for me to dock. But obviously, I'm gonna have to do that and then get that into orbit.
So whenever you're attaching this thing, you're having to fly like inside the gap between four engines.
Yeah, more or less. Just think
how much. How roomy is that?
Well, that's what I was saying is I thought just kind of, eyeballing it.
Yeah.
I thought that I had created kind of a snug little space where I could slide right in.
Yeah.
And that would keep, the little craft from wobbling around and it would be a good fit. Well,
I just imagine docking it is like that scene they put in like every sci-fi thing where they have some sort of ship and they turn it sideways to fly through a canyon.
Right.
Because that always happens. I just imagine like trying to dock that thing is something like that.
Well, there's I've seen some movies, and of course you don't appreciate this until you've played Kerbal, but I've actually seen some like really bad sci-fi movies, where the craft is approaching like the space station or something, and as it's approaching, they go, "Okay, start spinning it," and it's like, "No, don't spin it."
No, that's the worst thing ever.
Yeah, it's like hold the thing in place, don't start spinning it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I get that up there and then I try and dock. Obviously, I've got to create a bigger space back there now. That sounded really bad. Obviously, I've got to do some redesign so that that'll fit in there. Hopefully, by this time next week, I will be talking about my successful rescue and return. Well, that's my progress for the week. I'm in the process of creating and destroying, while two lonely Kerbals stand on the surface of Eve
with hope,
thinking that they have been forgotten.
No, they have
and
hope.
Abandoned.
They hear valiant efforts of they probably still get transmissions in their little helmets.
That's true.
They're like,
that's
there's something coming.
Have you ever heard the term driveway stories?
Like whenever you're in the like listen to the radio and you stay in your driveway to hear the rest. Yeah.
That's what I imagine. It's like they've got like the world's greatest mixtape, and they're standing on the planet Eve,
like,
listening to it.
Hold on, this is my jams.
Yeah, like we're not ready to get back in the ship yet because we're rocking it. Okay, well, that's my progress report. Did you cover yours?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I think we should just move on.
Okay,
Let's go into what's next.
What's next is Beginner's Minute.
All right. Let's do that then.
Do you want to explain the rules, or do you want to just do it?
I am given a question,
Oh.
and it's a question about how to do something in the game, and I'm supposed to describe and tell you how to do that and answer the question. I have 1 minute, unedited, to do it.
And a buzzer sounds at the end
And
of the
a buzzer
minute.
sounds at the end, and yeah.
And you don't know what the question is.
I don't know what the question is.
Okay.
Okay, let's do
Are
it.
you ready? Okay.
No.
3 episodes. We've only done this 3 times, or this will be the
Yeah,
third time.
the first one I was like, yeah, this sounds fun, and
Now it's like your weekly torture.
yeah, no, let's do it. Let's just do
Okay,
it. Let's rip
okay.
off the Band-Aid. Let's do this.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right,
Stressful.
this week's question is
Really stressful.
how do you get from Kerbin orbit into the Mun orbit?
Okay, so that's like the Oberth effect thing. So one way to do it is if you're at Kerbin, you can just like go straight up. You want to make sure that the Mun is like at if it was like on a clock face from the orbit view that you see through hitting M, you want it to be at like 3 o'clock, and you go ahead and just oh my god, you just go ahead and launch up, and to get into Kerbin, to get to the Mun, you just kind of go up until you see Mun escape, and then you can click focus on the Mun and then click focus view. And whenever you get focus view going, you can get your maneuver node and try to adjust it until it gets around the Mun. And like that's sort of like orbit. And once you get there, it all pretty much. I don't know where else to go.
Well, that worked out because you ran out of
That
time.
did not work out. I don't know. No.
That was exactly a minute.
Well, yeah, the minute worked out. It's good to know that at 1 minute is still 60 seconds. That's the only guaranteed thing I have in this life anymore.
You acquitted yourself well. You have no idea what you said.
Yeah, the quitting part of acquitted sounds good right now.
We should mention that for the entirety of that minute, I mess with him.
Yeah.
Boy, do I mess with
It
him.
does not get easier.
He has to block out all these distractions.
Yeah, I mentally repressed part of it.
About 3 in the morning, you're going to wake up. No,
No, I only got 30 seconds.
Biff, stop.
All right, let's go on to crew report, please.
Well, you need a minute to collect your breath, so we'll pause for a minute, and then we'll be back, and we'll read your letters in this week's crew report. All right, we're back with Kerbalcast, and it's time to move on to crew report, and this is where we read your letters. Nas has the first letter, so go ahead.
This one comes from Twitter. It's from Redneck in the City. They said regarding
Redneck in the City.
this is regarding mod statistics and our Majir interview. Still no way I'm adding this mod. Enlightening interview just doesn't feel right to me. And also, we wanted to tell you, Redneck in the City, there is a Diarrhea Planet reference in this podcast. You got to find it though.
Yeah.
Here's a hint. It's in the intro.
It's in the intro. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, on Twitter, Redneck in the City mentioned that they love the running joke of Diarrhea Planet,
Yeah.
and and he lamented the fact that it was absent, or not absent, but not prominent in
Yeah.
last week's episode. So continuing that trend, it's not absent, but it's not prominent in this week's episode. You have to go back and listen to the intro.
So delivering on the promise that we never...
Yeah. Delivering on the promise that we're going to underwhelm you.
Yeah.
We continue forth. Okay, next letter.
Onward and downward.
Onwards and downwards. This one is from Greg S. And it says, you guys were talking about arrow breaking in your last episode. The last trip I took to Duna ended poorly. I was going to Ike for science. Since I didn't go there often, I didn't know the proper braking altitude. My lander dropped towards the surface fast. My rescue mission, well, it fell over. Needless to say, it took some time to eventually get them home.
The next one is from regular contributor John Martin. Thanks for the podcast on space planes. I was thinking of using one on Eve in a manned mission. I was hoping the wings in the thick atmosphere would help overcome the 12,000 meters per second delta V you need to leave. Another way I found to get science is redirecting asteroids. You get about 60 science per observation location, so between high and low orbits on Minmus, the Mun, and Kerbin, that's around 360 science you can bring back from each asteroid. Just wait for a small one to enter Kerbin's sphere of influence and run out and get it and then haul it toward the Kerbin systems. I'm concerned, but also excited that the contracts might force me to restart my career mode game. With the 0.24.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. I'm wondering if when that update comes out, if my save games are going to go bye-bye.
Well, from what I had seen that they'd been saying, I think I saw him talking on Something Awful, Max Maps. He said that it should carry over everything, but the problem is you have all of this retroactive time of you not being within the budgeting system. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they're going to make that work or if it's just going to be like, hey, just kind of start everything over. It's career mode and you're in the alpha beta of a game. So it's really kind of like...
I said I've got 2 Kerbals standing on Eve.
Yeah.
It's like they're waiting weeks to be rescued, and then all of a sudden they just blink out and out of existence. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, everything just kind of disappears.
We waited for that.
On the asteroid thing that he was talking about, so like if
I wonder. I know what you're going to ask because I wondered the same thing.
Do you EVA on the asteroid and then collect?
I don't know if he's talking about crew report. My assumption is he's saying that you're moving the asteroid around and collecting science each time. I don't know if that means you do like crew report and you do mystery goo and you just keep getting different readings. I don't know.
Him saying it's 60 science makes me think it's a EVA.
Okay.
So I think what he may be doing is climbing out, getting on the asteroid, doing an EVA, and then getting back in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, anytime you crew report, it does it from where the ship is.
Right.
So because it wouldn't change depending on what the ship has, I don't think. But I haven't done an asteroid mission.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna say I've never even gotten close to an asteroid.
There's one right now between the Mun and Minmus in my game, and I'm like, it's just right there. But I know if I try to find it, like I don't know. If I'd find it.
part of why I'm and understand now. I mean, I haven't really tried to get to the asteroids.
Yeah,
but part of what makes it difficult for me, being kind of the mid-level player, is you cannot select the asteroids as targets.
Oh,
I think you have to go discover them before you can select them as right now. What I can do is I can click on them and it's like track object or something. I can't remember what the thing is, but I can't select it as target. I can only like focus view or something.
Yeah.
But part of what I would like to be able to do is select one as target and then use my maneuver node to try and get to it because that is not a stationary object. As you orbit, it changes.
Oh, okay. So that's probably why you can't focus on it because it says an uncertain path or whatever.
I'm not good enough.
I don't even have the grabber arm.
Worthy.
Do you have the grabber arm?
Yeah, I've got the grabber.
Okay, I don't even have the grabber arm. So.
The grabber.
Yeah.
Grab on. Grab off. Okay, let's see. You just read your letter. Okay, so it's my turn. All right, we got this from username AnyKey. He sent us a few comments that he calls Kerbal Bites, and these are just different topics. We picked 2 of them. The first topic is called Run, Kerbal, Run. He says, I'm tired of everyone saying Kerbals move so slowly outside of a vehicle. If they're on a light gravity object, such as a moon, they can use their jetpack to get into orbit of that moon, and if they're on the ground, they can run with the shift key and then time accelerate to 4x speed. Or they can do it the NOS way and roll their capsule.
Well, if you're in standard gravity, you get in the capsule and you get to roll, and that thing motors.
Yeah, except for the part where it goes over something and explodes. But
that's
aside
on the Mun.
from that,
that's on the Mun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second Kerbal Bite says,
I haven't tried to travel through water with that method, and I'm really wondering how much that would work.
I would guess, and I may be totally wrong, I would guess not very well.
I could have to try it.
For all I know, that thing, be like an airboat in the Florida swamp. Okay, the second Kerbal Bite is called A Little Bit Harder, Please. And this goes back to a letter that we got. I don't know if it was last podcast or the one before, but you remember we had a player that wrote in and was asking for suggestions.
Oh, to make the game harder.
Well, to make the game, he was saying that everything that he wanted to do was either too hard or too easy. And he was saying, can you think of some good challenges? In response to that, Any Key says, for that person that was looking for a little more of a challenge in your Kerbaling, there are a lot of mods that make it more realistic and therefore more challenging. You can even recreate the Sol system at 1-to-1 scale rather than the Kerbal 10-to-1 scale if you're really serious. That scares me to death. Can you imagine traveling actual distances instead of 10-to-1? I mean, getting into orbit would be like 10 times as long.
Oh, like you couldn't time warp or anything?
Well, I'm sure you could time warp, but I mean, the different, if you're going from a 10-to-1 scale to a 1-to-1 scale,
oh, okay,
you've just magnified the distance by a factor of 10.
Oh.
So, ouch. He says, if you want to make it easier, well, only thing that everyone wants to make easier is docking. There's lots of mods to give you a proper docking interface or to automate the docking, because we all know docking is the hardest part. That is something that we are going to talk about in future podcasts, because, docking is rendezvous and dock, especially early in the game, one of the most difficult things you can do.
Yeah, right now I'm so dead set on like landing on the Mun successfully that I'm kind of bypassing all my docking and rendezvous practice. I have the docking ports unlocked now.
Right.
But I'm just like, I'm squeamish about going back to it.
Yeah. Well, you remember I told you earlier, I'm doing a lot of trial and error trying to create the interplanetary ship. And the problem is the only way I can do the trial is I have to actually rendezvous and try and attempt to dock before I can even see if they'll dock and if it'll fit and whatever. So everything that I'm trying to do, every change that I make on the ground, it's at least 30 to 45 minutes before I can try it out. And if I had not figured out rendezvous and docking before, I think this last week I would have been an expert by now.
Yeah.
Because I mean literally it's like build something, rendezvous, dock, build something, rendezvous, dock, build something, and this has just been going on and on and on. I mean, I'm down to where it's like, I'm docking with my little finger.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Hey, Sisyphus got a lot of practice on rolling that rock up a hill, and he got really good at it.
Yeah, that's true. And then it would come right back down.
Yeah, so he could do it all again. It was really good practice. He had good fundamentals.
He was an optimist. He was a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah. Rock halfway up the hill kind of
guy. I like that. Okay, well, the next letter is yours.
From Dusty.
Not from you.
Yeah, not from me. From Dusty in Canada. Okay. That's where it's from. Nos, telling your attempt at a Mun landing brought to memory of my first attempt. I'm sorry. If it's anything like mine, I'm sorry. I have 31 hours on the game, so I have an idea of how Kerbal works. I finally got my spaceship into the Mun's orbit. Slowly getting closer and closer to the surface of the Mun, I had to decouple my second stage, the fuel I had, and the type of engine I had. Bob knew it was a one-way trip. Okay, this is familiar. I hit spacebar to separate. This is where it gets funny. I hit spacebar, and wouldn't you know it, I forgot to put a decoupler between my first and second stage. So me hitting the spacebar decoupled the cockpit from the rest of the craft. I was so frustrated that I did not revert and just watched Bob crash into the surface of the moon. Sorry, Bob.
See, you know how you talked about how it would be nice if Kerbals could get out and move things around?
Yeah.
At that point, if you forget to put a decoupler, it would be so cool if a Kerbal could get out of the capsule and go back there with like a hammer and a chisel.
Yeah.
And just and then like separate them.
It's separating one way or the other.
Okay, next letter. This comes to us from Rami in Italy. And he writes in and he says, "Greetings, LMP and CMP. I got KSP only last Sunday, and I am already at 22 hours playing the game. Love it." And this is in all caps. Love it. I can already land on Mun and Minmus, but I am finding it very difficult to dock in space. Haven't done it yet. And I'm still trying to perfect my RCS maneuvers. Immediately, I found out about your podcast and downloaded all the episodes. And this morning during my commute, I listened to the very last one, episode 9. And all I have to say is, please, dear God, don't ever do another podcast again. You guys are... No, I didn't.
I was like, oh, he seems so nice.
No, he says, I listened to episode 9, love it. Okay. But I have a note about your series As the Kerbin Turns. The wife always asks her Kerbin husband, how was your day? But as every Kerbal player knows, Kerbans stay on missions for months and years. My Jebediah was in space for 1.5 years until I sent a recovery mission to try and dock and retrieving. But not knowing how to dock yet, I ended up doing an EVA just to bring him home to his wife. So, the question obviously is, why is she saying, how was your day? There's an obvious answer. Kerbals have a built-in revert to launch. And so, at the end of every mission, no matter how long it is, they revert to launch and then they go home.
Oh, okay. So
or they F9.
Yeah, so they clock out.
Yeah.
And then he goes home. And
that is a little-known Kerbal ability.
If
the ability to F9 at will.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you listen to, most of the episodes of As the Kerbin Turns, like, they don't end well.
No.
So, he just kind of goes back home.
Yeah, he just F9s and goes right back home.
I mean, it's a syndicated program, so I mean, we just get our episodes in daily.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
true.
mean,
we have no control.
Yeah, we'll talk to the producers.
Yeah, we don't even know who those guys are.
Yeah, and see who's doing that.
And Rami from Italy also says, I wanted to comment about mod statistics. He says, I was an Android ROM developer making custom ROMs, and I developed a similar statistics app for my ROMs and others to use to collect anonymous stats about the users.
Oh.
I also made it opt-in by default, but I also gave the users the option to opt out easily. A couple of months after adding this app to my ROM, I saw that the numbers of users of my ROMs is so low and not worth doing it anymore, so I stopped doing my ROM. Maybe if all my users opt out, who knows? I was exhausted from keeping my ROM up to date for very few users. I care about my privacy and stats being sent to somebody else, but I also want to help devs by giving them feedback about the use of their apps. That's why I nearly always opt in to anonymous stats for small developers and never for big corporates, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Incorporated, etc. I'm sorry, Incorporated, etc. Microsoft, etc.
Incorporated, etc.
Let's also not forget that somebody else is tracking all our lives. 3-letter agency, KSP. Anyway, did you like that? Was my dramatic reading?
Yeah,
I was trying to convey puzzlement, bewilderment.
Well, thank you for writing, Rami. Thank you for downloading all of our episodes.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for not actually saying, "Please, dear God, don't ever do that again." Okay, on to our next letter.
From regular contributor, Run Phil Run. Just wanted to say that I'm really glad you're able to interview Majir about mod statistics so that listeners, including myself, can make an informed opinion based on Majir's own words, rather than only speculation and hearsay. Personally, my opinion stands as it did before. I trust Majir and mod statistics is in no way exploiting users. If you install mod statistics without realizing it, that is your fault as a consumer. Before downloading any mod, it is essential to be informed on what you're downloading and installing. It is the responsibility of the player. I still fear that a nefarious programmer may piggyback on this idea of collecting and sending data, but do it without the user's consent and possibly with bad intentions. For now, though, I trust that Majir and other modders are being responsible themselves, and everyone can benefit from the data mod statistics will collect. Great job covering this story, and make sure all sides are heard. To add to DeHood's spaceplane tips, DeHood was the Twitch TV streamer that helped us out with spaceplanes.
Which, by the way, I've decided I'm not going to call him DeHood anymore.
Why?
I'm shortening it. From now on, instead of DeHood, Dude.
Dude.
I'm going to call him, he's the dude.
Yeah, he's the dude.
Or if he's not, if you're not into brevity, his dudeness, El Duderino.
He really ties the spaceplane together.
Yeah. Just don't pee on it.
In order to keep your plane or spaceplane stable, you want to make sure your center of mass is in the front of your center of lift. If the center of mass is behind the center of lift, the plane tends to somersault, and if the center of mass is too far forward, the plane won't be able to nose up. I find that designing my own airplanes and spaceplanes based on real ones helps a lot, especially with Ferrum Aerospace Research mod installed. Existing real-world designs works very well. KSP is a simulator after all. And as a tip for Nos, for me.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, something for everybody.
Hey, I found myself in a similar situation trying to launch a plane without wheels. Oh, yeah. My solution, skids made of ladders and girders. Imagine a boat plane except made of steel and nowhere near as graceful. I had to decouple the skids from the plane itself in order to stay in the air, but I made it to the abandoned airfield with the help of parachutes. One of my coworkers actually started playing, KSP, and he went up to me. He's like, he was talking to me over the intercom because we have an intercom system at work, and so like
we should mention your horrible body odor.
Yeah. They lock me away in a room.
We're gonna send him some food.
I was in my office and he intercom, was talking to me, and he said, "There's another building here." And I was like, "What?" And so, I walk over to his office and he's like, "Yeah, I was just flying at night and I saw this flashing light." He's like, "I wouldn't have seen it during the day." And he found the abandoned airfield, and I didn't even know about it. So I actually sent off some space planes.
I know it's there. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I did that last night. I was flying some space planes trying to find it.
I would love it if it's overrun with vegetation.
Yeah. It was
maybe a couple of dinosaurs running around.
Like, I got a short glimpse at it. I didn't watch him walk around in it because I kind of wanted to see it for myself, get there myself. But he found it. So I don't know. Somebody,
it's been a while since I've seen this, but somebody actually built a ship that landed at the abandoned airfield, set itself up, and then launched from there. It was they had, it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
But it was multi-staged, and it's like landed, moved over to the launch pad, set itself up, and then took off.
Yeah. It's like a tribute to the abandoned airfield.
Yeah. The tribute to the abandoned airfield. Okay. Very last letter. And this comes from a regular contributor as well. This is Jobster. And he's talking about a YouTube how-to series called Making Fun. And this refers back to something we talked about last time. You remember we were talking about people that were making custom controls?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. Well, and I had made the joke about somebody building like a space pod in their basement.
Like a full rig.
Yeah, like a full rig. This guy, there's a guy on this series, quote, "This guy made a mission control desk for his kids. Then he made a spacecraft too, which communicates with mission control. Imagine if someone did this for KSP. And it's like a work desk, okay? And it's a flat surface work desk. But you can flip it up, and when you do, you've got like this giant map in front of you, and below it, you've got all of these controls. And the guy, and I mean, they're like, literally push buttons and click switches and all kinds of stuff. And he rigged them to where they all have sound effects. And, and the kid likes to sit there and play.
Yeah.
And I want to play, this is a small snippet from the YouTube video, but if you'll listen, it kind of gives you a sense of what this thing sounds like and how the kid is playing with it.
Though the cryogenics panel is mostly just a sound and light show, I also programmed in a widely known mishap.
Please stir the cryo pits.
Houston, we've had a problem.
That's awesome.
I know. You know what makes me laugh about that though?
What
is that for Jim Lovell and Fred Hayes and the whole crew on Apollo 13.
Yeah,
that was like a life and death thing, right?
Yeah. But now it's everybody turned out okay, so I think it's okay to like make kind of a joke out of it.
But I mean, can you imagine like Jim Lovell at 3 a.m. is laying there going, okay, it's like a kid's toy now.
Yeah.
There was a Titanic exhibit that was going around, and one of the things, I bought this for my kids. It's a bathtub toy of the Titanic. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. It is a bathtub toy. You put it in the tub, literally it would fill with water, and then the back half of it would detach and the front end of it would sink. And then it would pull the back end up and it would sink. And it was a children's toy. And I was sitting there looking at that thing thinking, there's a lot of people that would have never expected that to be a toy.
Yeah.
Especially that moment.
Man. Yeah. It's like having the Titanic. It's just a little boat and you play with it and stuff. And
I didn't really realize when I bought it, I didn't really realize what it did.
Like how morbid it was.
Titanic, bathroom toy. And I thought, okay, well, this is cool. They'll be able to play with it in the bathtub. And then it did that. Like and I was going, About the only thing that would have made it worse is if, like, it had released all these little plastic dead bodies.
Yeah, and like it played all these screaming sound effects.
No, I don't think the Celine Dion song was in there.
Oh, okay.
My little dig.
So is that guy, the guy that made the control panel, is he taking applications, like so I could fill one out so I could be one of his kids?
You want to be one of his kids?
Yeah, so I can get one of those?
Well, I don't know if you want to, because in the video, the kid is not allowed to play with this until he finishes his homework.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I figured.
I'll just build my own.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and take a break from our crew report, and then we'll be back with this week's mission briefing. We are back, and it's time now for Mission Briefing, which is news about Kerbal Space Program and also science and space news. And we start with a big announcement from Squad, and you can get to this by going to the front page of the Kerbal Space Program website. It is called Kerbal Space Program First Contract, the FAQ. And that'll link you directly to the article itself. We were going to go ahead and touch on just a couple of things that they discussed in the article. Question number 1. What are the main features of KSP First Contract?
Okay, yeah, I want to hear this one.
Okay,
he hadn't shown it to me yet. I want to hear it.
You haven't seen this?
No.
It's like spoilers.
Yeah, it just showed up, like, whenever we went to the mission briefing, it popped up.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, like, cliffhang, and then I'm going to go off and make a sandwich or something.
You're going to do sandwich time on the podcast?
On the podcast.
That doesn't get you more hours.
And I'm going to do, like, the Jeopardy theme.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What are the main features of KSP First Contract? Answer. The biggest update to KSP is the inclusion of contracts to career mode. Players will choose available contracts in mission control, earning 3 in-game resources. Kerbin's very own currency, which is called funds. Science.
That's good. I was afraid they're going to go the credits with a K or, like...
I was rooting for Kerbal Bucks.
Oh, Kerbal Bucks?
Yeah. Let's see. Science. This was already in-game, and it is how you unlock new parts in the game's tech tree.
Mm-hmm.
Reputation. Just like on Earth, companies that stay on budget, on time, and avoid any complications... They literally wrote, yeah, that wasn't me. That was avoid any complications, will see their reputation grow. This means better, more rewarding contracts. Fail to complete your contracts, miss deadlines, or lose Kerbal knots, and your reputation will suffer. Well, considering how I play the game, I'm going to have absolutely no reputation.
Yeah, mine's
whatsoever.
already going to the toilet. So.
Well, you read the next one.
Okay. Will the update break my saves? According to Ted, I've tested 0.23.5 saves here, and they've upgraded fine. However, please do note that they were stock saves. Modded saves might behave differently. Furthermore, because of the way contracts are implemented, they're appropriately generated for an existing save, so the upgrade should be seamless. Harvester says, keep in mind, however, that due to a small bug in the process tracking system in 0.23.5, it's possible that some contract offers on those saves may not reflect your actual progression, offers being more advanced than your achievements would warrant. This has been fixed on 0.24 and should not happen on new saves. It should only be noticeable on saves where very little progress has been made, as in not even reaching orbit.
And there was another question and answer that they posted, which was, when is this coming out? And they basically said, we're squashing the last bugs right now. They did not give a release date, but yeah. I'm sensing it soon.
Yeah, with anything like that, especially when you're in the alpha and beta of a game, you don't want to make all these promises and then it not come out at a certain date. So
honestly, I realize I'm setting the bar unbelievably low.
Yeah.
But if 0.24 was simply an upgrade to 64-bit, I would be fine. They wouldn't have to do anything but that.
Did the FAQ say about 64-bit?
Yeah, it is 64-bit.
Wait, for Windows?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah, if I get that.
Seriously, they could go 64-bit, 0.24.
Yeah, done.
Yeah, we're done.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
Hey, you don't get any more.
If it's 0.24, they still have a lot of game left to make, so they have a lot of time to add other features.
I was going to say, this could be 0.25.
Yeah, and they said that they were nearing the end of adding new features, and they're just going to work on polishing them. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So it should be soon. I smell a release date soon. Okay, continue.
Okay.
And before we go on from that, I should mention, if you want to read the rest of the article, which is very lengthy, which is why we didn't read it, just simply go to the KerbalSpaceProgram.com website. There's a link to it right on the front.
Okay. So, hey, Biff, have you ever wondered how many people are in space
Nos?
right now?
What is it? What is it, Nos?
Hey, Biff.
Yes?
Have you ever wondered how many people are in space right now?
All the time.
Well, you can go to howmanypeopleareinspacerighttnow.com and find out.
What's that website again?
Howmanypeopleareinspacerighttnow.com.
You mean I can get all this for $9.99 plus?
And you can find out how many people are in space right now.
Yeah.
.com.
.com. That's actually, have you clicked on that?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a neat site. I mean,
this is about as bare bones as it gets. I mean, you click on it and it literally comes up with a number.
Yeah, you click on it, it's like, and there's the number right there. And if you scroll down, it says their names and where they're from.
Yeah.
But there's not much more information than that.
I realize we're kind of dating the podcast, but I think when I clicked on it, it said 6.
Yeah.
There are 6 people in space right now.
Yeah, so next time you click on it, it's going to be like a secret colony of like 30 people. They're like, how did this happen?
I like how we slipped into infomercial mode.
.com.
Yeah, infomercial. It's like, have you ever wondered how many people are in space? I know I have.
Well, don't wonder anymore. It's time for How Many People Are in Space.com.
For a limited time.
And what do you got?
Okay, more news now. After 2 months of delays, SpaceX successfully put 6 Orbcomm telecommunications satellites into orbit on Monday, July the 14th, but they failed to recover the rocket's first stage. The launch was originally scheduled for May the 10th, but had suffered a series of delays over the past few weeks. That includes problems with the Falcon 9 rocket, problems with the satellite payload integration, and problems with the weather conditions not being right for launch. Attempts to recover the Falcon 9 first stage were unsuccessful. On his Twitter account, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said, quote, "Rocket booster re-entry, landing burn, and leg deploy were good, but lost hull integrity right after splashdown, a.k.a. kaboom."
Aww.
Aww. Okay, let's see. You've got the next story. What do you got?
From iflscience.com. Last year, the Parkes Radio Telescope in Australia picked up 4 signals thought to be from outer space. The signals are known as FRBs, or fast radio bursts, and only lasted about a millisecond. Because of the short duration, there was no time for other radio telescopes to check the same location. But now, the Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico has detected similar radio signals, confirming the earlier reports. Despite the short nature of the FRBs, some things about their nature have been inferred. Those detected at Parkes were all more than 40 degrees from the galactic plane, suggesting they were almost certainly coming from outside the Milky Way. The Parkes FRBs were estimated as having coming from distances as great as 9 billion light-years, suggesting a very powerful source. Theories so far include evaporating black holes, magnetar flares, and the mergers of neutron stars.
You know what would be so cool? I realize that they're saying that it's that the implication is that it isn't like a radio broadcast, an intentional radio broadcast. But it would be so cool if that story was like, yeah, we got confirmation of the WOW signal. Yeah, you're like, yes.
It's like we got in a radio broadcast from somewhere far away. And it's like, oh, what is it? It's like it's some program called
I Grok Lucy
as the curve and turn.
No. Oh, that would. Can you imagine if that was going out?
Yeah, it's funny.
It's like aliens would invade just to wipe us out.
There is they always talk about, like kids these days, like, they're young and they send out all this social media information. Right. They don't know the repercussions of it until it's, they're older and mature and it's too late.
Right.
We've been doing that as a culture, like with technology forever. We send out all these radio signals of all this goofy stuff. And whenever aliens show up, it's like, oh, that's when we were young. Just kind of forget that.
Well, remember the movie Contact, where the first signal, the signal that they intercept and send back to us was Hitler.
Oh yeah,
at the Olympics.
Uh-huh.
It's like you got to be kidding.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got that.
It's like out of everything we sent out, that's what they selected and sent back to us.
Yeah, it's like your most embarrassing photo is going to be the one everyone sees.
Okay, well, our last story. This came from Reddit, and it's called "Why KSP is Awesome." And it's a cool story, and I wrote to the person that posted this and asked if they wouldn't mind if we read it, because it really is kind of a cool story. This is one of those would never happen again if you tried in a million years type stories. Yeah. But this story was posted by username Panda Hammer, and this was on Kerbal Space Program, the subreddit. And it says, quote, "I had to tell somebody about a mission I conducted last night. It was just too good. I sent up a ridiculously overpowered nuclear rocket to capture a Class 3 asteroid and park it over Kerbin, but I got it wrong. I overthrusted, which put me into a Mun intercept, which gravity braked the asteroid into a Kerbin collision course. Disaster! So I spent all the remaining fuel moving this heap of rock into a 150,000 or a 150 kilometer decaying orbit. In a few short weeks, it would crash into the planet with 6 nukes worth of plutonium in the reactors and a good 100 tons of rock. Not good. So, up Jeb and Bob go with a modified asteroid tug to get this thing somewhere safe. Up we go and intercept, mostly without incident. Jeb docks the rocket on the asteroid and transfers some fuel to the now abandoned first mission, then goes on EVA. He enters the inert command pod, undocks the Mary Celeste. I love that reference.
Nice.
Yeah, the ghost ship, and spins her retrograde. Keep in mind, this thing can't be controlled remotely. It's too old, too simple, and was designed only as a tug. No parachutes, no emergency escape stage, just about 20 tons of empty fuel tanks, nukes, and a useless docking port. Essentially an elaborate coffin if Jeb gets this wrong. So he stages the engines to deactivate them, sets the throttle to max, and slams the engines into life. Giant red plumes shoot out and scorch the asteroid's surface. Jeb is now strapped to a ticking nuclear time bomb, accelerating towards re-entry and his certain demise. So he jumps. Jeb is still traveling at the same speed as the ship was while he was still hanging on to the external ladder, about 500 meters per second, and 3 kilometers from the second asteroid tug, his only ticket home. He slams his jetpack into full thrust, flies as hard as he can, and with only 1/10 of 1 unit of RCS left, he reaches the very asteroid that caused all this in the first place. He climbs back into the airlock, sits down next to Bob, and says, "I'd like to see Kirk pull that off." I love that story.
Yeah,
that last second leap for life.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I guarantee, never again. No matter how hard you try, that would never happen again.
Yeah, the amount of effort it would take to try to recreate it, it probably still couldn't happen.
And I love the fact that it was down to 1/10 of 1 unit of RCS.
Yeah, like skin to the teeth right there.
Okay, well, I think we're out of news stories. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that wraps it up for Mission Briefing, and you know what that means. And now, another edition of As the Kerbin Turns.
Honey, I'm home.
Hello, dear. How was your day?
Oh, same as always. I discovered a brilliant science fiction TV show, but Fox ran the episodes out of order and then canceled it. Say, I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch how I soar.
Tune in next time for another edition of As the Kerbin Turns. Oh, yeah.
Hey! Yeah. Hey, you got to hit the big issues sometimes.
That's right. Shiny.
Captain
tight pants.
You can't stop the signal.
Can't stop the signal. Yeah, I feel like putting on a brown coat for some reason.
Well, you might want to put that on. We're about to go in the cold, dark, deep space of Europa Report.
Are you suggesting it's time for But I Digress?
It's time for But I Digress, where we talk about things that are not Kerbal related. We are talking about the movie Europa Report. Which
we should have never done the infomercial.
Yeah, I'm hooked on it now.
Yeah, because now everything is in
everything's so
everything's in that infomercial voice.
So, if you're interested in this movie at all, it is currently on Netflix, so you can check it out. It is
called Europa Report.
Yeah, Europa Report. So, I'd been badgering you about watching it. What is your impression?
I liked it. I will say I liked it a lot better than I thought. And let me say right up front, because I may sound like I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I did like it.
Okay.
I have some criticisms.
Okay.
but I did like it. So just keep that in mind as you listen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to go, he hated it.
Noted.
He thought it sucked.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, go for it. As I told you before, I've had it with the found footage genre.
Yeah, shaky cam.
Oh, I'm tired of it.
Yeah, point of view filmmaking is kind of,
Well, I go back to what I have said. To me, found footage, interviews, and psychiatrists are all lazy writer tricks.
Oh, add pushy press people.
Yeah. Well, that goes under interview.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'll see this. You see this more in TV shows that have a weekly certain amount of time that they have to fill.
Yeah.
They go and they do hey, let's do the interview segment, and the reason is because all you have to do in like found footage and interview and stuff, and it's like psychiatrists. The main character starts going to the psychiatrist, and they spend 30 minutes talking about all their problems. It eats up a lot of screen time. It's easy to write because it's direct. And you don't have to structure it dramatically. And the found footage genre, to me, kind of has that same problem in that, you don't really have to worry too much about, dramatic structure. I understand that it is structured in a certain way, but because it's found footage, you're not going to have a lot of your typical dramatic moments. As much as I enjoyed this movie, because it is a very good movie. It's a good adventure story.
Yeah.
And I'll let you do a plot summary here in just a second. But the thing that I had trouble with is that you don't really get to know the characters other than as a bystander. And to me, the story would have had more resonance. Somebody dies, somebody sacrifices themselves, somebody, whatever. It has more resonance if you know the character. If it's just, crewman number 3.
Yeah, it has a bigger impact on you.
Right. Go ahead and do your summary of the movie.
Okay, so this follows, it's like you're sitting through a TED Talk, and it has the founder of the Europa Project.
Right.
The Europa Project is to send Europa 1, a spacecraft with a bunch of astronauts on it, to one of the moons going around Jupiter, Europa.
Right.
So they're going to...
Which, my understanding is, that's the one, there's a layer of ice, and it is believed that there's an actual ocean under it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not talking about the movie at this point. I'm talking about real life science. They kind of feel like if there's life in our solar system other than Earth, that's one of the best candidates.
Yeah, that has a good chance.
Okay.
So you start... There's scenes from the TED Talk where they're describing things that happened on Europa 1's journey.
Right.
And then you also get footage from inside Europa 1 of all of the different astronauts interacting and working. And it kind of goes back and forth. So sometimes the timeline, it's like you're not sure where in the timeline the TED Talk is happening, whether or not they're getting this footage each time and you're watching, they're having another meeting, another press release. But they're kind of going over its history. So it's like a documentary of a TED Talk covering a found footage. So this is probably a nightmare.
The movie of the trailer.
This is like Biff's nightmare right now from what he just said he didn't like. And
I did not say I didn't like this movie.
Yeah. So
I said I liked it. I said I'm tired of the found footage genre.
So it is all from the perspective of the cameras that are stationary on Europa 1.
And let me just interject here quickly. That is one of the reasons that this movie actually uses the found footage concept well.
Yeah.
A lot of the found footage movies, like I'll give you an example, Cloverfield.
I thought you were going to say Cloverfield.
Okay. You get these movies where supposedly somebody is videotaping all of this, right? One of their friends is getting eaten alive and they're not helping, they're filming.
Yeah.
And, everybody's about to die and they're filming. And, and it's like a lot of these found footage movies, you're basically asked to believe that in these extreme circumstances, an individual is compelled to keep a steady camera focused on the event even if, like, you know, there's like a snarling beast running at him, or he's in immortal jeopardy, or, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of the found footage, you're just going, why would anybody be taping this?
The closest I could come to it is if they had a movie like that and the character holding the camera was like a wildlife photographer or a war journalist or something, and they're used to those situations, and so it's like almost instinctual to film it.
But see, this
you
movie,
have like a civilian guy with a handy cam running from a giant monster. He's not going.
He's not going to be like shooting over his shoulder.
Yeah,
is that picture in frame?
Yeah, well, let me make sure the white
balance.
If
this thing
is correct.
bites my leg off, I want to make sure I get it.
Yeah.
No, but the thing that I give them credit for in this movie is the found footage aspect of it is credible, because it is from stationary mounted cameras.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that this stuff would be recorded and sent back.
So you can almost, if you got into it, you know, if you got into the, you know, feeling of the movie, it's like you're watching the news unfold. So whenever we see anything from the ISS or from, you know, any of the space shuttles, it's from, you know, a stationary camera or, you know, something they have set up there.
Well, and it also works to their advantage too, which is this, you can tell this is a semi-low budget movie. And I say low budget compared to the monster blockbuster typical Hollywood fare. In a movie like Gravity, they had to show you, because it was a typical dramatic story told in a typical dramatic way. They had to show you everything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would be like, why aren't they showing this to us? The fact that this movie is supposedly actual footage, what you do see looks good, but a lot of it is implied.
Yeah.
Or a lot of it is not seen directly. And that actually works to the movie's advantage.
Yeah, they're able to pull certain things on you, like something is out of frame.
Right.
And everybody's looking at it, and they can sort of play on the imagination where you're not exactly sure what it is, so you got to assume it's something fascinating.
And then what you do see, I really do give them props for this. A lot of the space footage that you see looks really good. I mean, it's believable that a helmet cam or something like this would capture images of that quality.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's good quality. You can see it, but it's not, you know, stereophonic.
It's like 1080, you know, like
technorama.
Yeah.
You know, high def footage. I mean, it's what you would expect, like a helmet cam. It's like nobody's going to make a found footage movie of a police officer's dashboard cam. And it's going to be in like Dolby Surround and HD
like,
digital.
this is
and
amazing looking.
Yeah.
So on the Europa 1's journey, you know, they run into some, you know, mishaps because it's space. And if you're going to have a movie in space,
you know, it's space.
I can't think of a single space movie where everything went according to plan as far as the equipment goes.
Yeah.
Something's going to go wrong. So,
well, you notice they made Apollo 13, not Apollo 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
Into a movie.
Yeah, everything that, if it goes right, you're not going to get a movie out of it.
Yeah, it's like, that's boring.
Yeah. And so
landed on the moon, yawn.
There starts to be a problem that starts surfacing in the crew. And there's just minor issues that start flaring up between them, and you can tell that it's not fully related to relational issues. There's something else at play.
Okay, I want to point something out here though.
Okay.
This actually kind of, the more I thought about it, the more this kind of tickles me a little bit. A couple of podcasts ago, you and I talked about Red Planet. Which, if you lay the two movies side by side, Red Planet and Europa Report, they're very similar movies. They have very similar storylines. They have very similar action beats, and they have very similar things that happen.
Okay.
You were not that big of a fan of Red Planet.
Yeah.
You didn't hate it. You enjoyed it, but you know, you kind of said, "Well, I was 10 years too late."
I wasn't raving about it. Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way about Europa Report.
Okay.
Whereas you really like Europa Report, and I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I really like Red Planet, and you're kind of lukewarm on it. And it's funny because they're kind of the same movie done differently.
So the thing that I like about Europa Report,
it's Val Kilmer, isn't it? You just don't like Val Kilmer. That's it.
Yeah, he looks like he's...
If Val Kilmer was in Europa Report, you would hate it.
Well, yeah. No offense, Val.
No offense, Val.
Yeah, we know he's listening.
Go back and eat your Doritos some more.
So, one of the
I'm
things...
one to make fat jokes, right?
Yeah, one of the things you notice...
Jabba the Hutt over here.
One of the things you notice about Europa Report is as they're going farther out, like they half talk about it in Red Planet. Like it's like one sentence and they're like, oh yeah, whatever. They can't see Earth anymore.
Right.
It's like he was there and now it's gone. And everyone's like, oh yeah, big deal. Let's go play rock music and look at some nematodes. I thought the movie was okay.
Right.
So in Europa Report, it actually starts to get to them.
Right.
And you realize what happens when you're so far away from the one thing that you were a part of, like Earth.
Right.
That you start to lose a lot of grounding.
But again, this goes back to, that's why I wish it wasn't a found footage movie. I would like to have seen that in a dramatic setting. Mm-hmm. Not in a, hey, I'm over here in the corner watching this guy.
Yeah. I will give it to you that you lose a lot of the emotional presence. Mm-hmm. I don't mind too much having to fill in some gaps.
Yeah.
Or really, like, they threw out that concept. And you saw that they, it was a validated struggle that they showed with the concept.
Right.
Like, they kind of do the Chekhov's gun thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you show the gun in Act 1, it needs to be shot by Act 3. So they do a good job with mentioning the, being so distant from Earth, and like having that loss of a connection and not really having a way to ground yourself. And the closest thing you can ground yourself to is this unknown planet, which seems to be bringing out like very eccentric things in people because they don't have a frame of reference for how they act and what they do.
Well, one aspect of Europa Report that is very different from Red Planet is that the Mars that you see in Red Planet is very Earth-like. Okay?
Yeah.
The Europa that you see in this movie is very dark and very alien. And there is one of the big differences, and you're talking about it, one of the big differences is you're talking about one group of characters in an environment that has familiar frames of reference versus another group of characters in a completely different environment that really is outside of their experience.
Yeah.
And there are different psychological impacts of that because, if you're untethered from experience, you really can feel like you're just drifting.
Mm-hmm. So all in all, you liked it?
I did like it. I would recommend it. Just understand I do have a little bit of a bias simply because I kind of went into it going, oh, not found footage again.
Yeah.
So that kind of wraps it up but I digress. And I guess that wraps it up for our program as well. But
I got one more thing.
Yeah, you have a special announcement.
Okay, so for our 10th episode, we're going to have a little bit of a contest. So for this, we're going to give out 3 clues. And from those clues, it will form one word. You email that word to our email, kerbalpodcast@gmail.com, and it gives you a good solid entry for a Steam wallet card.
And remember, the order of the clues is very important.
Okay, so the 3 clues are Firefly, Cannibalism, and Burst into Flames.
Can I speak for the entire audience right now?
Oh, what is that? What's wrong with us?
What the hell?
So those are your 3 clues. If you can find the answer, go ahead and email it to kerbalpodcast@gmail.com.
Right.
And it'll give you an entry. And if we have any entries by the time we do the next recording, we'll announce the winner.
Well, as always, we want to throw out some thanks. First of all, as always, thank you so much to our listeners. We appreciate you downloading. We appreciate you listening to us, writing in, leaving comments on iTunes. The support from you guys has been absolutely great. And, we say this every week, but I mean, literally, we would not be here without you. Also, we do want to thank our regular contributors as well.
We also want to thank the subreddit moderators for KSP and Kerbal Academy.
Right, yeah. Kerbal Space Program and Kerbal Academy, they have links to us on their front page.
And all the music you hear comes from Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap.
And again, don't forget, you can always contact us. Let us know what you think of the podcast. just contact us at kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can follow us, on Twitter, and that is at Kerbalcast. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on iTunes.
Or download us directly from kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com.
And that does it for today's episode 10. I'm still having a hard time with that.
Hey, it's a milestone. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
We've made it this far.
Well, we'll see you for episode 11 then. I'm your LMP, which is Lunar Module Pilot, Biff Aldrin. Our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Until next time, happy Kerbaling. And we have a special contest this week, right?
Right. No, I was giving it...
But we're not going to tell you the rules.
What was that? Somebody would have walked in on that. Oh, hey, we're doing this thing where... No. There's just no explaining what just happened right there. Oh, the Kerbal thing looks like Kerbals. We lost sponsorship for our music, so we're just going to beatbox it now. I'm going to play my nose.
Okay.
Hey, Biff, what are we going to do now?
So,
It's my $15. We can do whatever I want with it. Okay.
Let's start over again, okay?
Okay.
Okay.